And to culture wars. Now, the ban on golf in Victoria, that's the state that went crazy with the bans. Although I should also add Northern Territory, for some reason, also banned golf. But this ban never, ever made sense to me. I mean, what was the danger in having people go out in the open air and in the sun playing golf? Because the sun actually shortens dramatically the half-life of the virus, which is almost always transmitted indoors and not outside. So where's the risk? Well, Victoria's Chief Health Officer was asked at a parliamentary inquiry to explain the logic here.
How do you make the decision between which activities should be prohibited and which shouldn't? Because the example given to me was, surfing was okay and fishing wasn't.
The focus that I had was what is essential for people's physical and mental well-being. Golf, in my view, some other activities were really recreational and didn't provide exercise.
Joining me is Rowan Dean, editor of The Spectator Australia, author of a great book that I read about his own thinly disguised brilliant life, and host of Outsiders on Sky every Sunday. Rowan, there you had Brett Sutton, the Chief Health Officer, who's making these decrees. Golf was really recreational and not essential. That's why it was banned. What I didn't hear in his explanation was that playing golf was dangerous.
Yeah, Andrew, absolutely disgraceful. I'm going to get onto the golf and Brett Sutton in a moment. But first of all, I do have to pick you up on something you said earlier in the program, where you suggested that a love of Tang Dynasty poetry was somehow pretentious, or you used a cruder word than that. My bookcase here behind me is groaning with both early Tang Dynasty poetry and late Tang Dynasty. I'm a huge fan of Wang Wei. He's obviously early period. Li He was a master of the later period. But for me, my favourite, Andrew, is obviously Bo Ji, and his masterpiece, After the Collecting of Autumn Taxes, is something I can't go to bed without reading it. Seriously.
Du Fu is the guy that I like best, but you're making some of that up.
I mean, he's just
the translation by Vikram Seth, if I really want to get crazy about it, the translation by Vikram Seth, author of Suitable Boy. They're beautiful. Thanks for taking the piss out of me, mate. But
now let's get
it's
back
actually
to Brett
quite
Sutton.
good.
Okay, so here's this bloke. He says that golf is not essential. Now, the whole point I thought about, one of the key things, Andrew, with the virus is building up your immune system. And there's obviously many ways to build up your immune system, particularly for the elderly. Building up your immune system is absolutely critical. That's recognised around the world. And one of the key things you can do is get vitamin D, sunshine, exercise out there, and sporting activities. Now, for the elderly, who are the most vulnerable people for this virus, we know that again from around the world, golf is not only one of the best recreational activities, keeping the mind sharp, etc., but it's also one of the best physical activities. Golf is actually a sport in the Olympics, Mr. Brett Sutton. It was a sport in the early beginning of the Olympics in the 1900s. It was reinstated as a sport 2 Olympics ago. So it is a sport, full stop. And it is a critical way in which the elderly or people over the age of whatever can get that physical activity and sunshine that they desperately need to build up their immune systems. I know more than this than the Chief Health Officer of Victoria, of the state you live in. What an absolute joke. You have these petty bureaucrats sitting there saying, I think this is essential or this isn't essential. I've made my mind up. I think we'll ban this and we'll ban this. This is out of control, Andrew. These people have got to be stopped in their tracks. This is the bureaucrats are running riot with no common sense, no logic, and I would argue that they are actually costing people their lives through this sort of insanity because they haven't thought it through properly.
Well, I just wonder, we're told listen to the experts, but here's the problem. If your expert is a medical expert, fine, listen to what they say. But the point is they are a medical expert. They're not an expert in the economics of their decision or other aspects, Maybe they're not even an expert in the psychology, how it actually works on people's mental health. And from that point of view, it is, unfortunately, the politician's job to make the call. and not kind of hide as they're doing behind the experts, who of course are singing their brief. The medical experts only being judged on the medical consequences, not on the economic, the psychological, all those other consequences. And that's why I think politicians are being gutless here.
Absolutely. Couldn't agree more.
Now, this show, mate, is obviously an enemy of hypocrisy. I know you are as well on your show, Outsiders. 2 years ago, President Donald Trump nominated Conservative Judge Brett Kavanaugh to the Supreme Court. And that, of course, immediately made him the target of the left, particularly in the media. And when he was accused of sexual assault, which is a completely wildly improbable allegation, no evidence really behind it, many journalists and politicians on the left, including Democrat presidential candidate Joe Biden, said, got to believe the woman accuser, got to believe women, which is something they're not saying now that Biden himself is being accused, as we see in this clip from the Trump campaign.
A former U.S. Senate employee has come forward alleging former Vice President Joe Biden sexually assaulted her.
His hands were on me and underneath my clothes.
You have a right to be believed. We're with you.
Do we value women? Do we believe women?
Women should be believed.
We believe women.
I'm very disappointed that there are those who continue to not believe women who come forward. It is not easy, but they should be believed.
She is putting herself out there, knowing that they're going to try and excoriate her. And she has the courage to come forward. She has nothing to gain. So what does she have to gain?
I stand with survivors.
The woman should be given the benefit of the doubt.
These white men, old, by the way, are not protecting women.
Now, Rowan, all those people who said believe women when it was a Conservative being accused, none of them are saying it now. And to dodge the charge of hypocrisy, writer Susan Faludi has now written 1,600 words in the New York Times complaining that right-wingers are lying. The left never said believe all women. She says, in fact, they twisted that slogan so that I believe her became believe all women. But Faludi claims believe all women is not an amplification of believe women, but it's negation. She says, you know, it doesn't mean that you should believe all women. They never meant that. Do you believe that?
Well, Andrew, because I'm a huge fan of the Bolt Report and because you told me to, I read the entire article, all 1,600 words of it, and so that the rest of the nation would not have to. And that was my bit of service to the nation today. What a load of drivel this feminist set out to try and re-justify that the phrase believe women, which means believe women, which means by definition believe all women, is different to believe all women, which she says the all is a critically, is a right wing. So putting the word all in is right wing because she goes on to somehow justify it's a hashtag, and she claims to have gone through hashtags and found that more right-wingers use a hashtag #believe all women, and most left-wingers use a hashtag #believe women. She claimed to have done this. I've done this myself this afternoon on Twitter, and it's complete nonsense. The hashtag pops up left, right, and centre everywhere. But she goes on to use this to say that conservatives knew that one day there might be a woman who was lying. So therefore, they inserted the all in order to be able to accuse people like her of hypocrisy.
Rowan, you know, we're so cunning. We're so cunning.
I know, how brilliant. And we also knew Joe Biden was going to be the one who
we knew. We knew.
And knew it all, mate.
It's so strange. I mean, if she's really arguing that the slogan believe women was not believe all women, it meant believe some women, then the slogan said nothing at all. Of course I believe some women. I always believe my wife. Some others I don't. What is the distinction? Why would you yell at one stage about one woman making a wild accusation unless you did mean believe all women like this woman? I mean, it's just so dishonest.
Yeah.
Anyway, Rowan, talking about these bizarre culture wars, police in Derbyshire, which is a beautiful part of England, the police don't match the landscape, let me tell you that. They've tweeted for help to find a criminal, a terrible criminal. They've tweeted, we are appealing for help. to identify a man who kissed the woman on the cheek to thank her for helping when his lorry, his truck, became stuck under a low bridge. Now, Rowan, this sounds absolutely shocking. The woman was in her 70s and the trucker is now wanted for sexual assault. Your reaction to this unbelievable crime and this manhunt?
Yeah, exactly. It had to happen. They had to bring sexual assault into COVID and attack small business people or tradies or working people. The left love to link all these things up. And this is, we were talking earlier with the your chief health officer down there in Victoria, petty bureaucrats, which that bloke is. The police in Victoria and throughout Australia, sadly, New South Wales is no exception, have shown themselves to be petty bureaucrats, as well as we're seeing in England. And there's just example after example. This Derbyshire one is just an absolute classic. The bloke was so grateful for the help that the little old lady, Mrs Kavanaugh, had given him, that he bends over without even thinking. He gives her a peck on the cheek to say, thanks, doll. You know, you helped me in a difficult situation. Thanks so much. And presumably she would have told her friends, oh, this handsome young truckie or whatever gave me a kiss on the cheek. And the lefties would have spotted their moment. Wow, we can link sexual assault with COVID, and here we go, and we can get the police involved. You watch, this bloke will be found, someone will have him on, and they've asked, this is what's really getting to me, Andrew, is getting neighbours and people to spy on each other. They've asked, they've called for anybody who was in the vicinity at the time who might have one of those horrible spying GoCam, ProCam things to bring forward the footage so that they can track down this bloke who pecked the little old lady on the cheek. They'll do, and they will. This is out of control. It's getting really scary. There was an American woman on Twitter today who was saying, Andrew, that this is like the Twilight Zone. What is happening in our societies is like the Twilight Zone. And I cannot disagree.
It's extraordinary. They must be out of serious crime in Derbyshire, right? They must have run out of cats up a tree or something like this to be a national manhunt for the trucker, the kissing trucker. Rowan Dean, thank you so much indeed for your time.
Thank you, Andrew.